Well, thank you so much for having us here. I'm very excited to come for two reasons. Number one, it's always exciting to tell our story at Schneck and share that with others. And then number two, being a board member of ASQ in South Central Indiana. When we joined a couple of years ago, it was all manufacturing that was on there. So we had a lot of healthcare people join from the hospital, and then all of a sudden our manufacturing people stopped coming. So we're struggling to get that built back up again. And so we're looking to steal shamelessly from you some best practices on how to engage different business sectors to be part of our ASQ there in Seymour. But what I wanted to talk to you tonight is our Journey to Excellence, Schneck Medical Center, using the Baldrige framework. All of our themes for our presentations that we've given since we've won the Baldrige Award have been Indiana themes, because we were the first organization in Indiana to receive that recognition. So as part of that, you go and you share and you tell your story across the country. And we thought, wow, wouldn't it be neat to let people know all the attributes of Indiana and what they're known for. So this presentation is around the Indianapolis 500. We chose that theme. And the reason for that is that last year, Schneck Medical Center celebrated their 100-year anniversary. Also last year was the 100-year anniversary of the first Indianapolis 500 race. And just like the race car drivers race towards the end of the finish line to sustain their earnings, we're racing towards excellence to sustain our organization, because we're a small, county-owned, independent hospital. We're kind of a dying breed, and we want to maintain our independence for as long as we possibly can and have a little bit better control of our destination. So that's why we chose the Baldrige framework to help us get there. So first I have to tell you a little bit about Schneck Medical Center, and then about the Baldrige framework. Is everybody familiar with that, the criteria? Anybody not familiar with it? Okay. So I'm going to go over that just a little bit, then I'll talk about our journey and then lessons that we've learned along the way. Some of them kind of hard. It's kind of just a lighthearted look back of what we learned about ourselves. So this is a quote from Mario Andretti, that desire is the key to motivation, but it's the determination and commitment to an unrelenting pursuit of your goal, a commitment to excellence that will enable you to sustain the success you seek, attain the success you seek. So I want to tell you about Seymour, Indiana. Do you all know where Seymour is? Ever been there? So we're about 60 minutes away down south. And some of our more notable residents, we have the Reno gang that had the first train robbery in Seymour, Indiana. We also have the 2009 Miss America, Katie Stan. She was born at our hospital and raised in Seymour, Indiana. And our most notable and popular resident is John Cougar, that was also born at our hospital. And I can say, that's not a HIPAA violation, I can say that. And he was raised in Seymour as well. Schneck Medical Center, like I said, it's non-for-profit, county-owned, 100 years old. We have about 850 employees, 150 volunteers. We have 5 hospitalists. About 30% of our physicians are employed. Our facilities include a main campus. We have 93 all-private suites. And then we have 3 family care centers that are strategically placed in surrounding counties as well. Seymour, Indiana has about 22,000 people, and then Jackson County, our market share, our main market share, has about 46,000 people. And we see about 3,600 inpatients a year, about 30,000 ED, is that correct, Amy? And about 5,000 surgeries. So our vision is to be a healthcare organization of excellence, every person, every time. So when we started on this journey, we had to look at, well, what is excellence? And how do our stakeholders define that? How are we going to measure that? How are we going to know when we get there? So this slide depicts other compliance or performance improvement programs that hospitals have. To have the right to operate, you have to participate with the Joint Commission and do the state surveys, the Board of Health. But we want to really exceed expectations. We didn't want to just meet the requirements, we wanted to exceed those. So this just shows where the Baldrige National Quality Program lines up with that. for organizational excellence. So the criteria book, when you get that, it's really about defining who you are, what it is that you do, how do you do it, and how do you keep improving, how well are you doing it, and how do you know? So what are you comparing yourself against, and what are your benchmarks? So the book is not that big, doesn't look that intimidating, but you open it up and it has all these questions, and when you can't answer those questions, you know that you have a gap. So it's looking at organizational performance improvement, not process, but more of a systematic approach to improving your organization. So it's about planning, people, processes, and performance. And it's broke into 7 different criterias. The first 6 are process criteria. It's leadership, how do your leaders lead? Strategic planning, what are your inputs to your strategic plan? Where do you see yourselves? How are you going to get there? Your customer focus and your workforce focus, those are your people. What engages them? How do you know? Operations focus, what are your work systems and what are your key processes and how do you constantly improve on those? And are you getting the results that you want? And it all comes down to the results. So it doesn't matter how systematic and well deployed your processes are. If you're not getting the results that you seek, then we know we need to go back to our processes and fix those. We call this the Big Mac diagram, the hamburger diagram for Baldrige. It's the model. So I just want to talk a little bit about how the program works. First, you start off with an organizational profile. And that's just a 5-page resume of your organization. And it talks about your strategic strengths, your weaknesses, what's your purpose, what's the makeup of your workforce and your stakeholders, what their needs are, and then it leads into a 50-page self-assessment, and that's where it breaks down to all those different criterias. So what you say is important to you in the organizational profile, you want to see that throughout the rest of the categories because that shows integration. So if I say a strategic challenge for me is physician recruitment, then when we get to category 2, strategic planning, we want to see what those plans are for recruiting. And then we want to see in category 4, knowledge management, what are those metrics that you've set up to see if you're improving. And then we want to see in results, well, how are you doing with that? So that's how that all breaks up. So once you do that 50-page assessment, if you want to apply and have that reviewed by the Baldrige examiners, you send that in. And there will be about 8 examiners, and they're from different business sectors. They could be from manufacturing, government, education. There'll be some healthcare people. Those are people that are top of the line of what they do. And they spend about 120 hours apiece combing through your application. They do an independent review, and then they get together and do a consensus review. And then they have different leaders. Say my strength is in strategic planning, that I will be the lead person to drill down on that, to make sure the linkages are there and that you're getting the results that you want. And it gets scored. And if you score high enough with the national program, you'll get an automatic site visit. And that's where the real richness of the program comes in, because then you have those industry experts come on site, and they're there for about 4 or 5 days. They go and they take your assessment of yourself, and they clarify what they read to make sure they understood, and they'll verify because they're looking for best practice, because the foundation of the program is identify those organizations that are doing really well and having them share those best practices with others so we can raise the entire nation up to be more competitive. So that's the basis of the program. So once they do the site visit, you'll get a feedback report. And in that feedback report, they'll tell you what you're doing really well. Yeah, we agree, you've got it. You've got best practices. But they'll also give you opportunities for improvement where they've seen gaps, where you need to do things better. Maybe something's not well deployed, or you're not getting the results that you need to get. And that's how we use that to improve ourselves. We'll take those OFEs, and we get a lot of them. We won the award last year, but we still had 30 OFEs, opportunities for improvement, because we're not perfect, we're not excellent. We've just defined what it looks like to our stakeholders, and we have a plan to get us there, and we're making improvements. Some of those OFEs, you know, we can't work on all 30 of them. We'll look at them and say, no, we just didn't write our story very well, or they didn't get us. We didn't tell that well. And another third of it will be, well, yeah, that is an OFI, but it's not important to us right now. We have other things that we want to focus on. Or another bucket will be, well, yeah, that's an opportunity and we need to fix that. So we just take, and so that will be part of our strategic planning process. The ones that we feel like that we need to work on, we'll go back in and we'll have a plan for that. And then you repeat and do it. Now we can't apply again for 5 years, but starting next year we'll do the assessment over again to look at, to make sure to keep track that we're improving and moving forward. So when you answer those questions and you have your book, the things that they look for to make sure that you're doing your process as well is that you have a systematic and repeatable approach. So the first time we wrote our document, we call it our throwaway document because we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't even link it to our profile. We would tell anecdotal, we'll tell stories. Well, they don't want stories. They want to know what is that systematic, repeatable process that I can pick up at Schneck Medical Center and take it over to St. Francis and it'll work over there too. Again, they're looking for those best practices. They want to see that in your answer that you have a way to deploy it to all the relevant stakeholders and that they understand. That you have learning built into the process, that you've evolved, that you've made it better, because things that we're doing now, 2 years from now, healthcare is changing so fast, we're going to have to improve upon that. And that we have integration and harmonization across all the categories. So what we say that we're doing, we carry that all through the organization and we have results for it. For our results category, they use this acronym. It's called Let's See. So let's see your results. They want to know what your levels are, what is your current performance at the time, what are your trends, and trends, you know, how are you doing? Are you doing good for so many data points? If you're not doing good, why? On our financial trends, we actually had a dip in 2008, 2009. I think all hospitals had a dip, but you explain that. You know, you explain why that was. The whole healthcare industry took a beating at that time. Comparisons, they want to see who you're comparing against. Are you comparing against like organizations? Do you have appropriate comparisons? And then who are you benchmarking with? And that was a big thing that we've really improved on over the years, is benchmarking. Yeah, we had a lot of comparisons. We're comparing with the average, but we didn't want to be an average hospital. We want to be best of the best. So now we compare with whoever's doing it best. We want to be at the top decile. So whether you're magnet, university, big, small, whoever's doing it very best, that is what our benchmark is going to be. So it shouldn't matter whether you go to small town Seymour, Indiana to get care, if you go to a big hospital like St. Francis, you want to have the same quality care wherever you go. It shouldn't deviate. So it really makes you focus on what is important when you do it. How you meet and exceed customer expectations, knowing your competition, and then having a systematic approach across the organization for performance improvement. So it all begins with the organizational profile, and I just want to talk a few minutes about this. There's two sections that provide a snapshot of your organization. I said this is your resume, and I really encourage it, at the very least, that that this is completed each year, because it is. Our employees refer to it all the time. It talks about, you know, how many exams we did, how many or procedures that we did, what our employee demographics are. I mean, it has everything about Schneck Medical Center. And it looks at the internal aspects of your organization as well as the environment that you're operating in. So it's a real nice summary of your organization. And when you ask these questions, the first time we filled this out for our throwaway application, we just had one person that answered these questions. And it wasn't a true accurate assessment. So, you know, you're sending in this assessment for people to analyze it, and it's only as good as accurate as you can tell your own story. So a growing curve or a learning curve is being able to capture your story and able to tell that well. So the next time we filled that out, we actually had our senior leaders sit down. We did it for several days, and some of our directors, and they went through the org profile and they asked all that questions. And we didn't always agree on everything. There's some things we you know, had discussions about, and one of them was whether our physicians were our partners or our customers. And we had to table that one day. I mean, it just got so heated, our CEO said, we're not going to talk about this anymore. We're going to come back tomorrow, you know. And so we finally decided that they're our partners. They help us deliver our product, which is patient care. They can't be our customers. I mean, they're our internal customers sometimes. They're actually, you know, one of our key stakeholders, but they're not who we deliver our care to. They help us deliver that care to a partner. So, but it's a really good exercise. It helped get cohesion and a common knowledge and a common history among your leadership team, and it really helps you be able to take that next step forward. So there's 31 questions, and it talks a lot about what's key, what's main, because it wants you to focus on those things that are very important to your organization. When we first filled it out, this was in 2007, again, this is our throwaway application, and we had 22 things that we said was main or key for us in our small town, 93-bed hospital. And, you know, that's just not right. I mean, we could, if speech pathology, if we stopped doing that service, that wouldn't shut our doors. That's not main for us. That's a nice to have. That helps us get them there. But surgery's main. If we stopped doing surgery, we'd close down. So that's the part of that exercise of doing that org profile, is really defining what's key, and then if you say it's key, then you're going to see it throughout the profile, or not the profile, but throughout the assessment. So you're going to see strategic planning for it. You're going to see how you build capability and capacity for your human resources to carry it out. You're going to see what your customer requirements are for that segmentation, and then you're going to measure and make sure you're meeting all those things. So by the time we did our winning application, we came down to 4 main things that we offered. We do inpatient, outpatient, ED services, and surgery. That's what we focus on at Schneck Medical Center. So next I want to talk about our journey, some milestones, and then lessons learned. This slide depicts our journey so far towards excellence and improvement. We actually started in 2003 when nursing was looking for a framework to elevate what they do, and they chose Magnet, and Magnet is just that. It's for nursing excellence. They achieved that designation in 2006. Our senior leaders were so impressed with what that framework did for our nursing that we wanted to see what we could do to raise that whole organization up to that level. So our VP of Clinical Services went out and looked and found that really good organizations were using the Baldrige framework. So that's something that she brought back, and like all great leaders do, she delegated it to the quality department and said, here, go implement this, go forth. So we began that. We did our first application in 2007. We put it together in 3 months. We didn't even realize that we needed an org profile till a week before because it's just 5 pages. You don't get scored on it. We didn't think it was important, so it was wrote, I think, in 2 days. So I really, you know, being a national examiner myself now, I feel really bad for the people that got our first application, because trying to find any strengths or correlations or linkages, I'm sure it was a nightmare for them. So when we went to the first Quest for Excellence, that's the national meeting or conference that they have in Washington each year, we met Elaine Edgar from Ohio Partnership for Excellence, and we were telling her with our struggles of learning and getting through that learning curve. And Indiana doesn't have a state quality program, so we didn't have anyone to learn from or, you know, to help us. And so she said, you know, why don't you participate with us? You wouldn't be eligible for the award because it's an Ohio award, but I'll guarantee you an automatic site visit. We'll put together an A team, and this will be good for us to pilot to see if we can branch out. We're like, yeah, let's do that. And they came in 2009, and she's right. They put together an A team. They had Paul Worstel there, which was a 2007-2009 Baldrige winner from ProTech. He came on site. Sally Selesky from Ohio Medical came on site. And we were just like, they're not prescriptive when they come on site. They're just to ask questions. But we wanted you to be prescriptive. Just tell us what we had to do to get better. But everybody's different. So what's going to make our organization better is maybe not going to make yours better. They're just going to tell you where the gaps are, and then you figure out how to fix it. But he saw that we were struggling, and so he offered to meet with our senior leaders after the site visit and come back. So him and Sally came back on their own time and met with our senior leaders, and that's when we really got buy-in and engagement, because before Tammy had handed that off, my VP, to the quality department. And this isn't just a one department thing. Senior leaders have to own this. They have to be the ones that lead this program and get it going. So once Paul told them that, that's when we really saw the program take off. We applied again for national in 2010. Did not score high enough for a site visit, but we got so much momentum and excitement by having the Ohio examiners come on that we actually hired 3 national examiners to come on site and do a mock site visit, again, to see that we've made improvements and to keep that momentum. And then in 2011, we applied, and that year was so busy. We had the Joint Commission come, we had the chest pain reaccreditation, we had Magnet come for their we had the state health department, and then I got the letter that we got our first site visit, and I'm just like, bring it on, we're ready. We've had such a year. So we got our site visit redesignation, and we got Baldrige that year. So it was a great year, but it's just a milestone in the road. Like I said, we're not excellent. We had 30 OFIs, so we'll still continue to use that to get better. So I wanted to just give you some lighthearted look back, some of the lessons that we've learned. So if you decide to take this on, maybe to help with your learning curves. The first one is to just do it. You know, one of the things that we have done since we won the award is have sharing days where people actually come on site. And one of the guys from a business said, you know, well, do you use it, do you wait till you get your house in order before you apply? And no, you use it to get your house in order. It's a tool to make you get better. I mean, you don't wait till you think you're there, because you'll never get there. I know people that have been using and looking at this for 5 or 10 years and never implemented it yet because they don't think they're good enough. And that's not how you're supposed to use it. So you want to complete the assessment, get your feedback report, take those OFIs, and start making improvements. Lesson 2 is, I'm so glad the Ohio Partnership for Excellence is now the Partnership for Excellence. So now it's Indiana, Ohio, and West Virginia. So we actually have a state program now. And with them, I like it better because with the national, actually they've changed the rules and you have to go through a state program now before you apply to national. But with that, you get an automatic site visit. So you don't have to wait till you tell your story good enough before you get examiners to come on site. So I like that a lot better. So, and these are the 3 different levels that they have. So if you're thinking about just getting your feet wet, they have the advising level where you actually just fill out the organizational profile, and they'll assign you 2 mentors or coach to help you with that. Excuse me. So I'm actually helping with that with another organization in Indiana this year. So, and then once you do that, if you decide you want to go further, they have a partnering level where they'll actually help you do a 25-page self-assessment. And then the next level is that 50-page assessment, and that's where they'll coach you and help you through that, and you get the examiners that come on site. Lesson 3, we're a small hospital. We don't know everything, so at times we have to get outside expertise to come in and help us, and we've done that several times. When we first started Baldrige, it's just like a language all of its own, so we had someone come in and actually help us explain what the criteria meant. We've had people that edit, you know, the assessment, or we've had one really good coach and she'll say, Suki, you really didn't answer that question. I'm like, well, because I didn't know what the answer was, you know. And so she'll make me go out and you know, and tell that story better. Or if it's an OFI, she'll coach our senior leadership team and say, hey, this is a big gap. And I don't know what it is, but the farther somebody comes, you know, the more credible they are. I mean, you just can't be a prophet in your own church. So she'll come in and it's been great. Lesson 4, which I don't have to tell you all this, but being process literate. In healthcare, we really touch the Philly people. So it's I think this is a problem, or I feel, and we can't do that anymore. Reimbursement's getting cut, we have to do less with more, and we have to have data. So we've trained 7 black belts, internal black belts, and when people come to us and say, well, I think we've got a problem, we're like, go collect data. We want to see the data. I don't want to know what you think or you feel. I got to have data before I put, work improvements around it. And so we've identified our key processes. We've identified our key process owners. We've had a workshop and we've had them do SIPOCs for all their key processes. And then we've had them do swim lane maps. And that has been really beneficial because people have not realized how when they change their process, how it changes their the people that put into it or the people that are receiving the product. So that's been very beneficial, and we actually have it up on our intranet, all of our key processes mapped out. So when we do performance improvement or we're not sure how something works, we just click on it and bring that flow map up. Lots of barriers when you first get started and you're trying to lead change because it is an extra project. Until it becomes part of how you do your work, it's an extra project, but it's well worth it. It's more about systematic thinking and not thinking in silos. It's a systems perspective. So it's not what's best for nursing or what's best for financial. It's what's best for Schneck Medical Center and how nursing and financial can come together and make that happen. And then be prepared because you might have to call somebody's baby ugly. So when you're trying to lead change and you see a gap or you see something that's not systematic and you have to tell a peer, sometimes that can be ugly. So, but we've gotten better at that. Be patient. It takes a while to learn the criteria. It takes a while for people to understand what you're trying to do and that you're not trying to step on their toes. I can remember many times in leadership standing up and talking about Baldrige and doing education and then being in another meeting and somebody will say, gosh, I just don't understand this at all. I wish they'd do some education. And I'd be like, oh my God, I don't know how I could get it out anymore. I remember one time I was in a meeting and I heard when somebody said, well, yeah, but how are we going to deploy that? And I felt a little tear in my eye because I couldn't believe that they're finally getting it. They're using systematic and deployed and integration. And how are we going to measure those results? And it just makes you so proud when you finally hear that, that you're not the one saying it, other people are saying it. And then finally, senior leaders must eventually own it. It started in the quality department, and that's okay to start, to learn about it, to kind of educate. But for it to really take off, then it became a committee, and we had several people on that committee. And then it grew bigger, and then we had, category teams for each of the categories. But then when each of the senior leaders had ownership and had to lead that category team, that's when we saw it really take off. So when it became how the organization did their work, that's how it became everybody did their work. And last, I just want to show that as a result of the Baldrige journey, of course, we've seen improvement in all of our 4 pillars in healthcare. We have our strategic focus, our quality of care, human resources, customer service, and fiscal and operations. Oh, there I had it on my slide. So one of our things that was a strategic challenge for us or something that we wanted to do was increase physician alignment and engagement. So how we've done that is been very transparent with our data and been inclusive. So they're part of our strategic planning process now. We're transparent with our data as well as with their data. We've unblinded their scorecards so they can see how each other is performing on all the measures. They're a very competitive bunch, and so that went pretty well, but you can see that they're very engaged with the hospital. And because they're engaged, they're engaging with our patients better as well, because that's patients, if they don't feel like they got good customer service, they don't think they got good care. So we want to make sure that not only are we providing a good product, good health care, but we're giving them good service as well. And this is our most impressive story. And Amy might have to help me with this, but this is our STEMI time. So this is a time that a person arrives at our door with symptoms of a heart attack to the time that we can get them to where we insert a balloon and open that up. The gold standard is 120 minutes, and that's if you don't have a cath lab. 90 minutes is if you have a cath lab within your hospital. And you can see with all of our work that we've done that we're well below that. In fact, we've hit under 60 minutes, I think, a couple of times. So that's really good, but the rest of the story is we don't even have a cath lab. So our nearest cath lab is 26.1 miles away. So we're taking people, and that's at a nearest competitor. It's our competitor, people that we've never partnered with before. So now they're at the table, we've trained them, we've trained EMS, and we can get those patients. We're doing it better than that competitor hospital that has a cath lab in their hospital. Our processes are so good. So it's been a wonderful collaboration, a great success. Because we've had this successful interaction and have improved care for our patients in the community, we're actually working with that hospital on some other things as well. So when you win the race and you're on top that day, take it for what it's worth. Have a good time and party, because the next day when you get out of bed, the meter goes back to 0 again. So even though we won, our work is not done, our meter is back at 0 again, and we still have lots of work to do. And just one more thing, for those that are trying to lead change and how difficult that is, a little inspiration for you, a little video. Oh, it's gonna work. Okay. That's not how I wanted to close my presentation. Fine here. Well, I was just going to play it by itself since it wasn't going to play in the slides. Let me go to my computer. Do it that way. So you're the E drive for metrology. I don't even see my... That's why. It wasn't in. I hope you like this, that you've leaded up to it now.
If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen, start to finish, in under 3 minutes, and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore. It's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out, you break ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. The leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut, and it's not 2 nuts. 3 is a crowd, and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers, because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point, and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute, you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is over-glorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
So we've been hosting sharing days at Schneck Medical Center, and it's where we actually bring people on site and we show them all of our best practices in the different categories. It's been really successful, and the people that have come on site, we've actually learned some things from them as well, but this is our next one that we're going to have. Another point that I wanted to make that I forgot to say during the presentation is, you know, I said senior leaders must lead it. All of our senior leaders didn't buy in all at the same time. You know, we had one lone nut that did that dance for a long time. And then finally others started to catch on, and that's okay. That's all right. They're not all going to come on at the same time. So, Ann, is there any questions?
Yes. You mentioned that you had really good physician participation. Mm-hmm. And it's a very small hospital, so I'm assuming that you don't have a lot of turnover in your employees. Are you anticipating a change if you do get turnover, as people retire, as people move in and out? What have you put in place to make sure you sustain that momentum?
We grow our own, you know, there at Schneck, and we identify those key positions. We also partner very early with our middle schools and high schools and have career days where we actually bring them on site, show them the different careers in healthcare as well as IT and biomedical and things like that. Once we identify those people, especially people going to medical school, we have a physician recruiter that tracks them. And you know, we also have student jobs on site that we do for in the summertime. Amy, can you help me with some, is that? We have a Hiring for Excellence program, which is very systematic, robust, where we identify those people to make sure that we're not just hiring the skill set, but we're hiring those values of the people that we want. I mean, we're a very high-performing organization. We've identified that we kind of need to hire based on that behavior, so we're going through that cycle of refinement now. I mean, you're not going to come to Schneck, go to work, and go home. I mean, we have really high expectations of our employees, so we're refining our hiring process to identify those as well. So.
You mentioned that you had senior leadership support. At what level? I mean, is a CEO actively involved in being a champion, or? Yes,
and when I say yes, he is the owner of the plane. He doesn't drive the plane. He's not the pilot. He's not even the co-pilot, but he owns it, and he makes sure that we have the resources there, and that we do have a pilot. And when we got our first site visit, he was going through that criteria book, you know, trying to catch up with the language and stuff, because he wasn't the Baldrige expert, but he knew that it was working. He knew that it was a great framework, and he supported it and provided the resources for it. I can remember one time, you know, you go through these programs and people think it's flavor of the month. And we had a meeting because we were kind of early on our journey, and we had this big picture of an elephant. And he stood up and he said, I want to address the elephant in the room. You know, this is the framework that we're using to drive improvement for our organization, and we're going to stick with that. So you're either on the bus or you're not. So it was very powerful to have him stand up and say that.
You were speaking about resources. Was there a key organizer? Was that the quality department? Is that you personally that seemed to keep things, particularly as it grew and you started getting really serious about this, getting the data and putting it into the framework and doing the reports and things like that, how did you get the resources to do that when everyone has, I mean, this is what I kept hearing. I have a full-time job anyway.
Right.
I don't have time to do this, so.
It is. It's like a project when you first start. Fortunately, Magnet had gone first, and we had nursing, and they were tracking a lot of good things. And so when I started working with the Magnet coordinator, that really was beneficial for me as well. And it has to be the part of how you do your work. I mean, you need to be systematic. You need to be tracking the right things. One of the things that we did, and Amy was with me on this for Category 4, is about knowledge management. We went through to see all the data that people were tracking, and we were tracking over 2,000 measures in our hospital. You can imagine the work that goes into that. Now, some of it is run the business. CMS regulatory requires that we do that. Some of it is change the business, which is good, but there's other things that we went through and we asked directors, why are you measuring this? And they couldn't tell you. They couldn't tell you what they were doing with the data, why they were collecting it. It was left over from a prior director. So making you be really focused and purposeful and understanding why you're doing what you're doing. And now I think we're all very more attuned to that. We work more efficiently and effectively, but it's change, and change hurts, and it is extra work until it becomes how you do your work.
Did the results of that evaluation help feed some of your Six Sigma projects that came up when you got your belts?
Yeah, I think so. When we first started, we partnered with Ivy Tech, and they actually came on site, and we identified, some of our projects that we wanted to work on.
Well, how will increased government regulation impact your program of living?
We've been dealing with government regulation for years. I'm not quite, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, obviously with all the Affordable Care Act.
Right. It actually helped us because now we know our data, we're managing by fact, and we've got those measures and metrics in place, and we're also more effective and efficient with our processes. We were doing a lot of rework, and we still do. We still have a lot of work to do, but it's made us look at, especially to sustain a small, like I said, independent hospital. We're not getting any more reimbursements. They keep cutting all the time. Our patients keep getting sicker, and they don't have any money to pay us. So I think it's been very helpful to help us focus on that we can't do everything. We can't be everything to everybody, but what is it that we can do and be successful and serve our community?
And I would say that having the Baldrige framework in place actually is the answer to your question. So how are we going to contend with increased government regulation? We use the Baldrige framework. It's a systematic process. So having that already in place really puts us ahead of the game.
So that's a strategic challenge for us. We actually know, as part of a SWAT, that's a strategic challenge. So we have, again, consultants, people in place that know what those changes are going to be to help us prepare and to get ready for those.
What sort of a timeline did you follow from the time that you decided that you were going to pursue Mountain Baldrige to the actual implementation of the reward?
She decided, this is Tammy, she decided in 2007, the third quarter, that we were going to go forward. And that's right about when I started. And then they put the first application together and submitted it the 1st of 2008. So, and then and as you're filling out that assessment, you can tell what your gaps are, because when you can't answer the questions, it's a gap right there. I mean, you don't even have to wait for that feedback report. So.
The whole just do it.
Yeah, just go ahead and do it.
You just got to fill it out and start somewhere.
Yeah. And part of it is, I was new to the department, and so learning my new role, plus learning the organization, plus learning the Baldrige framework. I think I aged 20 years that year. I'm only 25. So it was really painful that year to learn all that, but it was well worth it. And it takes time to learn your organization, because we're all very siloed in healthcare, and so to kind of get a more systems perspective, to be able to tell an accurate and good story, it takes a while, but it's well worth it. We now have a shared knowledge. and shared understanding about our organization and what it's about.
Who was your lone dancer?
Be Tammy Dyer, VP of Clinical Services. So yeah, yep.
So isn't part of the message that there's a lot to gain and not much to lose, because the Baldrige information, the criteria, getting the book, and just doing the self-assessment's free.
That's free, that's right.
And,
it's free.
And everybody kind of wonder why people don't use it more, because it's been tried and true.
Right.
It's tested, it always works and makes things better.
Right. And if you go just to win the award, there's only 12 hospitals that have won. So, I mean, the likelihood, I mean, you don't want that to be your only reason. I mean, it's been great. I mean, people know Schneck that probably would never know Schneck before. So it's been great for us, but that's certainly not the reason that we did it. We could have been sorely disappointed. I know organizations that have been on this journey for 10 to 15 years and are very, upset. And then I know other organizations are like, oh, we haven't applied yet because we know we're not good enough yet. Well, no, you have to apply so you can get that feedback, so you have to go through the process. So, all right, well, thank you very much, and if you ever have any questions or anything, please let us know. So.